Dead blood in the streets, it's up to my ankles. Feet flat in the streets, it's up to my knees. Feet flat in the street, the town of Chicago. Feet flat on the rise, it's following me.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Abolitionist Abstractions. As always, we are covered by a BIPCOT no government license. This allows reuse by anyone except governments and the agents thereof. You can find out more information about this at bipcot.org. So I am back, and it's just me this week, partially because the last solo episode was so well received. I got a lot of good feedback on that one, so thank you everybody for that. And partially because, well, for the past week or so, I've been dealing with the moronathon that is government in a bunch of different ways. So I've been a little tied up, and I haven't been able to nail down any conversations this past week. I do have one scheduled. I have a recording scheduled on Saturday. I'm hoping to be able to turn that into a Abolitionist Abstractions episode as well. And I have a very special one lined up next week, depending on how things go on Saturday. The one that I record next week may not come out for 2 weeks, but look for that one in the next week or two. It's going to be a conversation with somebody that anybody who's been listening to the Seeds of Liberty for a long time will be well aware of. So I'm looking forward to that one. Anyway, so like I said, just me this week, and I was trying to think about what I wanted to talk about, and then, well, luckily things just get dropped on me. And this is kind of tied to a post I put out earlier today on the Faced Beasts, which I'm definitely using less and less these days, mostly just for sharing content from other platforms like Steemit and stuff like that. Although those tend to get squashed by the algorithms, I keep trying anyway, because that's where most of my content goes first. But I made a post earlier today which was tied to something that I put out yesterday. But the post was basically along the lines of, wishing that so-called libertarians and anarchists were more concerned with finding ways to make the state obsolete rather than spending an exorbitant amount of time trying to debunk certain memes. And, it was kind of a vague-ish post the way I posted it, although some people seem to latch on right away to what I was talking about, because this was tied kind of to a meme I put out yesterday about Lauren Southern, about her issues with getting into the UK, about not being allowed to get into the UK and being labeled a terrorist or whatever the actual story was. And I received a lot of backlash on that meme, which is funny because it's always memes like that I get so much. It's not just backlash, but it's like people willing to go on and on and on in comments, like, wall of text comments about how wrong I am and how I'm making a straw man and blah, blah, blah. And it's, I usually let them go on for a while and just kind of, talk themselves out in that manner, but sometimes I can't help but respond. But my first reaction these days, most of the time, has been, well, something along the lines of, it's a meme, dude, not your mama's strap-on. Don't take it so fucking hard, because that's really where I'm at with a lot of these people. It's so insane that people get so wrapped up in these memes. And, I'm somebody who makes a fairly decent amount of memes. So like, I understand the world a little bit, but people get like, it's one thing, because somebody actually asked me on that thread if I was referring to somebody like himself who would get sucked into the, like, say, the gun memes that go around, the anti-gun memes and stuff like that, and are filled with like all these erroneous facts. And he admitted that he gets sucked into these things, but, just to correct these errors. And, to me, that's one thing. If there's like, if you're doing a meme, if there's memes out there, no matter what the cause is, pick a hot button topic, guns, abortion, GMOs, whatever. If it's a meme like that that's listing off what's supposed to be factual, statistics or something like that, and they're blatantly wrong, well, then yeah, I see no issue with somebody trying to spend a little time trying to correct that information so that bad information is not passed on. But when it's a meme clearly just trying to mock somebody, and clearly not meant in some serious it's not a form of argument. Memes are not arguments, people. I'm not sure if some of you are aware of this, but they're not meant to be arguments. So for your immediate response to this to be a reactionary and yell, straw man, you're an idiot. I wasn't making an argument, therefore I cannot possibly be making a straw man. I made a meme. It's supposed to be funny. And I even had a couple of people I saw, somebody like Virgil Viduva, who I'm a big fan of, the creator of Cell 411. For anybody who doesn't know, and he and I disagree on a lot of different areas. But he shared a screenshot of my meme and said, and he actually holds a very different position as far as borders and stuff as I go. But he shared it and said, "This is funny, no matter what your position on borders is." And I was like, "Thank you. That's what I was going for." You know, although to be perfectly honest, the overwhelming majority of memes I make are made for one of two reasons. One, we need content for the Seeds of Liberty page, and I provide most of that content. So if there's been a lull where we haven't had any content put out in a couple of days and we need something up there, then I will fire off a quick meme. Other ones I put in more effort to, other times. But that's usually one of the main reasons that I make a meme. The other reason is that it makes me laugh. And I'm not really concerned about whether it makes other people laugh. Like, I'll usually share it with a certain group of friends first just to see their reaction. And it always obviously makes me feel good if other people find it funny and share it and pass it on and comment positively on it. Of course, I get that little endorphin rush. It's great. Dopamine hit, whatever it is. And but really it's because I find it funny. But with the seriousness that some people take these memes, it's just so out of control. And for anybody who didn't see it, the meme in particular that I was talking about this time, the one I made about Lauren Southern, basically said, she often blathers on about stricter border controls, and then on the bottom shot, it's a picture of her looking a little upset and says, "Cries victim when strict border controls are imposed on her." And I obviously know it's not, number one, it's not a perfect analogy. So like I said before, I wasn't trying to make an argument, so I don't have to make a perfect analogy here. But I think what a lot of people, again, reactionaries, missed is what I did try to explain to a couple people who tried to actually have a conversation about it rather than just yelling at me about why I was wrong and how it was just, a stupid meme, whatever they wanted to say. And my explanation, I just got tired of explaining it over and over and over again, so I just gave up and let other people argue it out on a couple where this was shared a couple of different places. But my argument was, if I'm actually going to make an argument for this meme, all I was saying I was taking obviously the very basic approach to this and not a very nuanced position on either side, and it just comes down to. So on one hand, you have somebody who advocates government control of things like borders. And that means that the government will regulate that. And that regulation always comes with restrictions based on what allegedly the people, but in the end, the government, consider for one reason or another undesirable. And what happened to her was she went to another country. And from what I've heard of the story, her visa was allegedly approved originally, but it was certain members of the government, I guess, government employees who decided on their own that they didn't want to let her in and said she couldn't come in. I haven't checked out the full story because, again, I really don't care. I was just doing it for a quick laugh because it made me laugh. And I put it out there, and a lot of other people seem to appreciate it, but so many people were mad about it. And it just... Like I said, you're not even thinking it in these terms. It's like I have less sympathy for somebody who advocates the use of government force for any reason when they have that used against them. Because if you break it down to basically what happened, that's basically what happened. A government decided that, or a particular faction of a particular government decided that she was undesirable and didn't wish for her to enter their geographical location that they claim control over. When you break it down to the bare nuts and bolts, not much different. But again, I wasn't trying to make a grand point here. It was just meant to be funny. But so many people get so bent out of shape of these things. And it reminds me why I was often told early on, and I didn't realize it at the time because I was one of these idiots at the time, why the liberty movement in general is considered humorless on a lot of levels. There's the talk of a lot of people being on like the Asperger, on the autism scale, a lot of people having Asperger's. I'm one of them. I've talked about it openly before. I'm one of those people who know that I'm on the spectrum, but I've learned to deal with it over the years, and it's fine. But there's a lot of other people who don't realize they're like that, and they really are, and they're just a bunch of humorless fucks, honestly. And they're also the same ones who scream the left can't meme regularly, even though I know plenty of so-called leftists who make some pretty damn funny memes, and I get called a leftist all the time, and these same people appreciate the hell out of some of my memes when they really don't realize it's coming from me. So to claim that the left quote unquote can't meme is just stupid. But like I said, they just get so bent out of shape of these things, and it's really ridiculous because it seems to go hand in hand with a lot of the same people who love to just sit around in their echo chambers, or maybe step out of their echo chambers to argue their points every once in a while, but just to theorize the crap out of all of these points, but never actually do anything about it. Except a lot of these same people actually have started to do something about it by turning back towards government in one sense or another and claiming that, well, if we're going to have it, we need it to do this type of thing. Yeah, that just never ends well because, if we're talking about this particular issue, the whole border thing or whatever, okay. You want certain people kept out of certain areas for whatever the reasons are. Let's even take, like I said earlier, let's take the reasons off the table. You just want this done, but you want it done by a government. Let's take the United States, for example. Please show me the historical examples of the government actually doing what the people want and continuing to do it and doing what they actually say they're going to do. Like, when is the rhetoric actually lined up with the reality, except when death and destruction are on the line? And even then, it's usually very convoluted, and the actual story comes out much, much later. But you're trying to entrust an entity that has no credibility in this department, in a lot of departments, but in this department. So, why would you rest any hope on that? Which actually, now that I'm thinking about that brings me another point that just kind of makes me chuckle, because that's also something that somebody like myself and plenty of other people like myself have been accused of before. Usually this claim gets leveled against people like agorists, which I do consider myself to be. Well, I was when I was doing my business for the past couple of years, and I've tried to move more that direction overall. But it gets levied against a lot of people who consider themselves agorist, and the straw man that has actually been created of people like mine's position is that, we just want to wish government away, and if we just ignore it, it'll go away. It's like, well, no, that's never actually what any of us have said. Maybe somebody who's extremely naive has made that comment offhanded and not really realized the ramifications of that. But no, most people with any common sense would say, no, we're not just wishing it away, but we're trying to help build systems outside of it that will help create less of a need for government, and then these systems will become obsolete through that process. But it's basically just along the same lines of calling people, you call somebody a utopian. Oh, you think these things are going to happen. That's funny. Even though you've created a straw man of, well, let's just use me for example right now. Even though you've created a straw man of my position in order to which attack me from. Not only have you done that, but you're attacking me from that position while also holding the same position that you are basically a utopian without realizing it, because you are claiming that one of the only ways to get through this whole mess is to put faith in something that literally it's faith that something that a government will actually do what is asked of it when it goes against everything the people who call themselves government need for it to happen to continue to succeed and prosper on their end, and grow. There aren't historical examples of that because it doesn't happen. So putting any of your faith in it is really, really utopian, I would think, which is, just another one of these hysterical ironies that I find with a lot of the people, most often bordertarians, who get all bent, because they're usually the ones too who get all bent out of shape when I make certain memes or make certain comments about stuff like this. But it's pretty damn funny. That's why, I go after my co-host on the Seeds, Dave, quite often about stuff like this, because the one word that comes to mind quite often is something like projection, because a lot of the things that they're screaming about, they don't realize, or worse, they do realize, and they're trying to completely play it off like they're not. But most of them, I honestly don't think even realize that they're completely, being hypocritical in those standpoints, because they're doing almost the exact same thing, which they think is to a totally different end, so it doesn't count, that type of deal. To pick on Dave a little bit more, I mean, he made, for somebody who claims he's not on Facebook anymore, he spent an awful lot of time there the past couple of days. And today he fired off a bunch of posts. One of them, which being trying to attack leftists for their for the way they define words, or rather, they refuse to define words so they could be slippery, which is what I flat out accused him of on the very last Seeds of Liberty, because that's exactly the type of thing that he does all the time. And he tries to create his own definitions for words, or he switches between trying to use the etymology. And like I said, I'm just picking on him right now, but he's far from the only one. Plenty of people do this. On one hand, they'll try to focus on the etymology of the word, which I'm all for in a lot of instances, especially for words that have their meanings have become so convoluted over time, and there's so many conflicting meanings at a certain point that nobody actually understands what the other person is talking about. You'll use the same word, and each person will use the same word, and you'll be having a completely different conversation with one another because you don't understand the differences there. But slip it, there's a lot of people who will slip on one hand between trying to go back to the etymology, be like, no, this is what the word actually means, but at the same time try to create these new definitions under the auspices of trying to change the lexicon. I think that's actually a line I stole almost verbatim from Dave. But having changed the lexicon and attempting to change the lexicon in real time are two very different things. And if on one hand you're chastising other people for not clearly defining their words, but on the other hand you flip-flop between the etymology of words and what you would like them to mean, and are trying to change them to mean in the common parlance, yeah, you can't really have that both ways. Doesn't work like that. Yeah, poor Dave. Maybe one day he'll figure this out. Anyway, enough picking on him. Like I said, the overall thing, I think, is that, well, a lot of people just don't have a very great sense of humor. And even if you just want to chalk it up to, like, they don't have the same sense of humor as I do, okay, fine. Like I said, a lot of my memes are made to make me laugh. Value is subjective, humor is subjective. All right, great, you don't get it. But why invest so much time trying to tear these memes down when you clearly aren't the type of people that are actually out there doing anything to make anybody, even yourself, any freer? I don't get it. It seems like a complete waste of time. And, I used to engage in it to a certain extent. I'm lucky I snapped myself out of it. It's just funny. Like I used to hear people that claim they were, hardcore ANCAPs at one point and then no longer were. And back then I was of the position, oh, these people are crazy. Once you go ANCAP, you can never go back. And, I said ridiculous things like, oh, that just means you never were one. It's like, yeah, the further and further I get away from that whole thing about clinging to any one ideology, I realized how right some of those people were. Because I've said it before, as far as ANCAP goes, yeah, I still align closely to a lot of the ideology, but overall, I don't have to cling to anything like that. It's still a spook, and it's a useful one for me in some respects. But I understand now why people were able to say that, and that it didn't mean that they were just full of shit, or they were never really that to begin with. All these things that, again, ironically, a lot of so-called individualists manage to collectivize the hell out of so many other people just because it makes it easier for them to deal with what they believe is reality. And I say it like that because, as I've mentioned before, I think a lot of these same people don't really actually live in reality. They live in these little echo chambers of theory that they've created and converse in. and the actual reality of what goes on in the world and the actual ramifications of the theories that they postulate about all the time don't really reach them. They don't really grasp that. So, basically the TLDR for all this is, or TLDL, I guess, would be lighten the fuck up, man. You don't like a meme, you don't have to say anything about it. I'm not saying don't say anything about it, but man, if you're going to go on for walls and walls of text, especially when you're off the bat just assuming the meme maker's intention, you make yourself look like a complete idiot. Even if in the end somehow you end up being right about something, you still look like a moron. And you've wasted all that valuable time when you could have been out there trying to figure out some way to either make yourself freer or make yourself freer, and attached to that, end up making other people freer and actually get closer to living the ideals that y'all yammer on about all the fucking time. So yeah, lighten the fuck up, people. It's just a meme. It ain't your mama's strap-on. Well, with that, I think I'm going to close out tonight. Like I said, I just wanted to. I wanted to put a show out today because, well, I like to keep things on track, and this actually kind of fell on my lap. But I could go on and on about it, but I'm sure I'll just end up repeating myself more. And ain't nobody got time for that. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening. This has been, again, Abolitionist Abstractions. All of my information can be found at either steemit.com/@abolitionistj, or these shows and most of my other content does get put out eventually through solpodcast.org. And like I said, keep look ahead for the next couple of weeks. I hope to have some interesting shows with some interesting guests lined up. And if I could finally nail down those other people that I've been talking to for weeks, we should have a good couple of months coming up. As long as I don't end up in the clink with all my legal troubles. But hell, even if that happens, maybe I'll figure out a way to pull a Cantwell and do my podcast from jail. Yeehaw. All right, so once again, thank you everybody for listening, and I will catch you next time. Love, peace, and voluntary interactions for all.
Indians scattered on Dawn's highway bleeding. Ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.